Yeah. Awesome. All right, we'll get started. Well, hey everyone. Welcome to the official book launch for Dr. Nicole Butts, obviously with Shift. This is, for those that don't know me, I'm Vince Warnock. I'm actually the publisher on this. I'm also a birthday buddy with Dr. Nicole. We both have the exact same birthday, just a couple of years apart. You can work out who's younger. Um, but, but it's also been an absolute privilege and honor to be working with Nicole on this. I think this is not just a good book. I think this is actually a really, really important book. And most of you will be aware of, the whole situation in the world right now around division and things like that. And this book, I think, brings people together. And I think it's a really important thing that we should be adopting in all corporates. So wherever you work, adopt this book. Simple as that. So simple today, what we're going to do for the book launch is we're going to run a bit of a competition that's going to be going over. We'll have some competitions in here and some giveaways. But also, we're going to be running a competition over the next week to give away some very, very cool stuff, which I'll tell you about shortly. So I'll give you those details. I also then want to introduce you to the person that doesn't really need any introduction, Dr. Nicole Butts. And then we're going to, basically, I'm going to interview her about the book and about some of the process around writing that and things as well. And then we're going to open it up to questions. So for any of you that have questions, hang on to those questions. When we get to the question part, make sure you raise your hand. And if you don't know how to do that, down the bottom on Zoom, you will actually see a thing there that says React. And if you click on the React button, you'll see one of them says Raise Hand. And when you do that, it'll kind of prompt you to the top up here so I can see you and we can ask you what your question is. And then we'll give away some more stuff and then we'll close it out. So without further ado, super excited about this. Now, giveaways, very important part of this. Hands up in here. In fact, everyone raise your hand if you'll do the raise hand reaction if you've bought a copy of the book already. Let's see, we've seen a few of them pop up here. Dr. Sheree, yeah, so a few people actually holding up their actual hands. So confusing. For those of you that haven't already bought a copy of the book, I'm going to leave a link to it in the chat here. So there you go. So if you purchase a copy of the book, and for those of you that already purchased, when you get that copy, take a photo of yourself, share it on social, any of the social platforms, and use the hashtag #ShiftBook. Just as you see in the chat there. When you do that, we are going to be giving away very, very cool prizes. So the prize for that is going to be, hang on, I'm just going down to where the prizes are here. Here we go. We're giving away some Amazon gift cards today, but we're also going to be giving away some t-shirts. And for those that haven't seen, Dr. Nicole, where are you going? You've disappeared from my screen. There you are. Look at that t-shirt. Consciousness, trust, courageousness, sexual transformation. I love that. But also, we're giving away a session with Dr. Nicole. So for any of you that need help with culture in your organization, any of you need help with transforming your organization and things, honestly, you're going to get an incredible session with Nicole there. So make sure you get a copy of that book. And for those of you that have purchased a copy of the book, I want you to do something else. And this is very important. You can do this over the week, but take some time to do it. Go back into Amazon and leave a review. Now, some of you, just so you know, there is a requirement that you have to leave a review on Amazon. So you have to have purchased over $50 worth of stuff over the last 6 months or something like that. It works out. So it'll tell you if you're not eligible. But if you are eligible, do leave a review. It's an incredibly good way to support an author because it doesn't just let Nicole know exactly what you got out of the book. So let her know what how it impacted you, some of the things you got out of it, some of the points that are really impacted you in there. But also it sends a signal to anyone else that's looking at that book to say, hey, this is the book you should be buying. So, and we all know this because whenever we go to Amazon and we look at books up there, we always look, oh, wow, they got 27 reviews. This must be a popular book. And, it's a 5-star review or it's 4.5 stars or whatever that is. So go in and leave a review and let Dr. Nicole know exactly what you got out of the book. Super important. Here we go. Here, a few comments. Just ordered mine. Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Nicole. Mabel, congratulations. Lots of congratulations. Honestly, you guys have got to see the smile on Dr. Nicole's face. Like, this has been a huge ordeal a huge accomplishment to be able to publish this book.
Ordeal work too.
Yeah. We are very, very proud. Oh, Tamara's ordered a copy. Wonderful. All right, so throughout this, we're going to be giving away some Amazon gift vouchers. So for those of you that are wondering how to do that, really, really simple. Let us know. Keep engaging in the comments there. But also when it comes to question time, I'm going to be looking at those questions and giving away some prizes for the best questions for Nicole. So there you go. You're going to have to get yourself prepared for that right now. And also for those that have ordered a copy of the book, as I said, make a note in there that you've ordered a copy, and we'll give away something there as well. Wonderful. Right. Now, over to the very important part of introducing somebody who has had a huge impact on my life as well, Dr. Nicole, because I got to meet her when we were working on the book, The New C-Suite. And this is some incredibly powerful human beings in there, basically looking at changing the face of what's required of us as leaders. And so Dr. Nicole was one of those contributors. And honestly, as soon as we connected, I was like, hey, it turns out we were separated at birth. Then we found out we got the same birthday. So there's a chance we were just a couple of years apart. But Nicole, I really want to thank you for this book. I really want to thank you for the work you've put into this. So now I'm just going to ask you very quickly, tell everyone in here, what was the inspiration behind this book?
Oh, wow. So the inspiration behind this book was really about 25 years of watching leaders, and by extension, organizations that they lead, struggle to live up to the values that they claim to uphold. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen that in your own workplaces. Time and time again, I saw a disconnect between people's aspirations and their actions, between the culture they wanted to create, but the reality of the way the organization was actually operating. But in 2020, two really kind of seismic events happened back to back. One, we had the murder of George Floyd, which brought about that global reckoning on racial and social justice. We also had COVID-19 pandemic that forced organizations to really rethink how they were managing people and how they managed work. And these two seismic events really shattered the status quo that existed within organizations. And I found that leaders were really in a crisis. They were facing both a personal reckoning of consciousness, but they were also dealing with how they wanted to lead as a professional. So they were dealing with their own beliefs and biases and blind spots, but they were also facing professional crisis in their leadership. And they realized that their existing strategies and styles were really insufficient for that moment. They had been insufficient, but they were really insufficient in that particular moment in time. And most of the leaders that I encountered, they really were unmoored. They were missing two things. They were missing an internal framework to guide them through the uncertainty. They did not have an external structure either within their own organizations to lean on. So the values that they had posted on their office walls, the values that they talked about in town halls and in strategy meetings, we know they were just words. They really lacked any meaning, they lacked any power, and they most certainly did not align with any actions that they were holding people to, or even holding themselves to. So I wrote this book because I believe that leadership really should not be reactive. It has to be intentional. And organizations should not simply be stating their values. They have to figure out how to embody those values. So I wanted to provide a roadmap for leaders who genuinely desire transformation, leaders who no longer wanted to struggle with the gap between who they say they are and who they actually are, and who they say the organization is and who the organization actually is. So this book is there to really not just challenge leaders, but also guide leaders and call them into their own consciousness as leaders, to call them into courage, and ultimately call them into transformation. So that was really the inspiration behind the book.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of the things that stood out to me in the book as well, is the fact that it is very practical. Like, you do actually provide a roadmap for them in there, and it's very easy to understand, which is good, because with ADHD, by the way, so for those who don't know, I have ADHD. Reading books is really difficult for me, even though I run a publishing company and I've written 11 books. But this book was incredibly easy to digest, and the reason for that is it's very structured and very practical. So it gives the really kind of a good framework for people to be able to do this. So I love that about it, Nicole. So talk us through the journey of writing the book. Talk us through from that moment of, hey, I need to write this, to this moment here where, hey, I'm published author again. Yeah.
Yeah, so in 2021, I was actually working for an organization as the chief diversity officer. And because 2021 again we were still dealing with the COVID-19, we were still dealing with the social and racial reckoning. There was a lot of really intense and personal work happening, and I was in higher ed, so it was particularly intense. And one day, one of my colleagues said to me, "How do you do this work?" And it was an interesting question because I could tell from their tone that there was really a deeper meaning. One meaning was that they were asking me, how do I maintain my emotional and mental well-being in the face of really personal and challenging work? But the other part of the question was a genuine inquiry into what enabled me to navigate that kind of work and be so successful at it. So that question really stayed with me. And one of the things I realized is that very often, and it shows up in the book too, we operate on autopilot. We act, react, we make decisions, oftentimes without pausing to examine our own thought process or our motivations or even our own guiding principles. But I've always believed in the power of intentional reflection, the need to pause and ask ourselves really difficult yet necessary questions. And it was during one of those, what I call purposeful reflections, that I revisited the colleague's question, right? How do I do this work? But more importantly, why was I able to do it effectively? So it was from that really deep introspection that the SHIFT framework was born. Because in truth, I had been using this methodology for decades, both in my personal life and in my work life, dealing with people and culture. But I had never really mapped it out. I had never taken the time to consciously analyze, examine, or document the process that had really guided me and my clients and the organizations that I worked with through their own changes. So writing this book became a journey of really me unpacking my own approach to the work and translating years of experience into this framework so that others could use it to navigate change with intention, with clarity, and with courage. It's kind of where this came from. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment.
Yeah.
But SHIFT is not just a concept. It really is a methodology. It's a roadmap for moving individuals, teams, and organizations from where they are today to where they really want to be. So this book is the result of that journey, a process of turning my own lived experiences into a tool for transformation for others.
I love that. And one of the things we've found definitely in our history of publishing books is the ones that really have the most impact are the ones that came from exactly what you talked about there, Dr. Nicole, which is it came from someone genuinely asking for something and you providing the answers to that. It's surprising how well books do when you're actually answering questions that people have.
Yes.
So I love that. I also love the intentional reflection as well. That's something I think people need to do a hell of a lot more of.
Yeah.
This is awesome. So talk us through in that journey. What are some of the challenges you had in bringing this into book format?
So one of the challenges was I had to shift my mind from academic writing to, I don't really know what to call this kind of writing. It's not fiction, but it's not academic writing either because I just come off of writing my dissertation. So I really needed to make that shift. But other than that, there were really two primary challenges that I encountered every single time I sat down to write. The first one, and it was the biggest challenge, was really a fundamental and philosophical one. And that was, who is my audience? To whom am I actually speaking in this book? And this challenge may actually show up for you as readers from time to time as you're going through it. The reason is because SHIFT is a framework for transformation. It's not just about organizational culture, it's really about transformation. But transformation happens on multiple levels. So while the book applies this framework to organizations, organizations are made up of people. And before an organization can transform, the individuals within that particular organization have to transform themselves as well. So we first have to undergo our own transformation. So the way I approach this, I'm speaking directly to people, to leaders in this book, but I'm asking them to apply what is really a personal transformation to their organizations. The work of transformation starts at the personal level before it can have a meaningful impact on that larger organizational system. So I really overcame this fundamental and philosophical challenge by constantly balancing those two perspectives, speaking to the leader as a person while simultaneously placing them in their role as a leader, asking them to apply these insights within their organization. That was the first challenge. The second challenge was very, very different. So I'm not a natural storyteller. but I knew the storytelling was key to making the book compelling. So initially, I considered writing it as an allegory, similar to books like Who Moved My Cheese or The Energy Bus, where you use fictionalized narratives to really illustrate those leadership and workplace dynamic principles. However, as I was working through the writing process, I realized that an allegorical approach didn't fully align with, I'd say, the depths and the nuance of the actual shift framework. So I couldn't take that approach. So I overcame this particular challenge by letting go of that allegory model and instead really working to weave real world examples and case studies and practical applications throughout the book. So by grounding the framework in actual leadership experiences, I hope I was able to bring it to life in a way that is both engaging and also actionable for you as the reader. So ultimately, these challenges really did shape the book into what it is today. It should be. I'm hoping it is. I hope you see it as a balance between personal and organizational transformation and a blend of insight, strategy, as well as real world application designed to create lasting impact in yourself and in your organizations.
I love that. I love the way you talk about the stories and things as well, because one of the things I think is really powerful about this is you could have gone the allegory approach. You're right, it doesn't really align with you. But the other thing too is you bring so much to the table, Dr. Nicole. Like your expertise and the successes that you've had, super important. And bringing those to life in the book and actually using real life examples, real life things that you've worked on or that you've come across, I think adds that extra dimension to it of going, hey, this is somebody who knows what they're talking about, explaining to you in real world terms how to actually make transformation. So I think that was really, really powerful.
Thank you.
So what were some of the surprising insights for you? Like when you were writing the book, what was the things where you're like, wow, I did not expect that?
Right. So, a couple things come to mind with that, but interestingly enough, they're not so much insights or discoveries as much as they are kind of more remembrances, right? And me seeing greater examples of some of the principles or some of the practices that I've already seen in the 25 years that I've been in this field, right? So one was the disconnect, or is the disconnect between, I'll say, power and culture. So here's what I mean when I say that. Many executives or leaders often possess kind of a master of the universe mindset when it comes to driving business outcomes. They are in charge, they are moving full speed ahead with strategy. I shouldn't say strategy, but they're moving full ahead with revenue, with operations. But they often fail to apply that same sense of their own personal level of influence and control over actually shaping the organizational culture. It's almost like they view culture as something that simply already exists, something that they have to navigate rather than something that they have to actively cultivate. And while they readily take ownership of financial performance, market expansion, operational efficiencies, they often underestimate their own power in defining and reinforcing the culture that underpins all of that work. So that was one kind of remembrance, right? The other is a shift from strategy to tactics. So a striking realization, and one that became particularly evident to me in my dissertation research, is that leaders today have become increasingly tactical and far less strategic. There is a relentless focus on execution, on checking off task lists, on immediate outputs. But what seems to be missing is that intentional pause that I talked about earlier, that intentional reflection, time to, as a group, individually and as a leadership group, reflect, time to engage in meaningful dialogue and to align actions with a deeper purpose and identity. So leaders are so consumed with the doing that they really rarely stop to consider who they're being or who they want their organization to be. So this book challenges leaders to break that cycle, to step back, reflect, and engage in the kinds of conversations that are essential really for true transformation. Because without that conscious effort, organizations will continue to just drift, right? Reacting to what's happening in the moment instead of leading from a place of intentionality. Yeah, so those are the two kind of pattern remembrances that came up as I was going through this process.
I love that. That's far more powerful than the insights. That's awesome. Now, just very quickly before we go on with the interview here, just wanted to mention to everyone, one of the things you'll notice when you go to the link for the book is the ebook and the paperback are both reduced prices at the moment. So if you haven't already bought it, now is the time to buy it, because for the next 5 days, 5 to 7 days, it's going to be at that price, and then it's going to go back up to the original price from that. So just want to mention that for anyone that's sitting there going, oh, I'll pick it up tomorrow, maybe the next day, maybe the day after. Don't miss out on that.
That was
All
one of
right.
the
Well,
first questions my mother asked me today, Vince, when I went to pick up
yeah,
to pick up her copy of the book. She said, "Why is it so inexpensive?" I was like, it's going up. Don't worry, it's going
it's
up."
a strategy. It's a strategy. It's all good. Our goal is very simple. We want this to hit bestseller. So spread the word, get out there. I love that Dr. Sherry says she shared about it on her launch, about the book launch on both her Facebook groups. Really appreciate that, Dr. Sherry. But all of you, share it out there, spread the word. Like I said, this is not only going to just help Dr. Nicole, who, as you all know, is awesome, but also it is actually going to be something that I think is very important for this world right now. Now, before we kind of go into the next questions, Dr. Nicole, show us the t-shirt again and tell us a little bit behind the t-shirt.
I'm happy to. So the T-shirt is consciousness plus courage equals transformation. And that is really I'm going to say, foundation of the book. The concept or the notion that we have to have both consciousness and courage in order to transform ourselves. So give me a minute, because I really want to kind of talk about that a little bit more, because it's so very important. And the fact that I picked this particular concept out of the entire, I think it's 253 pages, I think tells you how important it is to me, right? So consciousness plus courage equals transformation. We need both, right? So in order to lead with impact, we need conscious clarity, right? A really deep awareness of who we want to be as leaders and how we want our teams, our organizations to function. This vision, this consciousness has to be very clear, it has to be unambiguous, and it has to be ever present in the forefront of our mind. We have to be conscious of our own values, and more importantly, intentionally, how we're going to demonstrate those values. Because I think, we all have our values, we all have our espoused values, but it's turning those espoused values into lived values, right? Which is why clarity alone really isn't enough. We also need courage, the willingness to act in alignment with our values, with our vision, with our aspirations, even when it's difficult. And it's often more difficult than it's not, right? So living in full integrity with who we want to be is often uncomfortable, and we know it can be challenging. Yet without courage, our convictions remain really just kind of idle thoughts, idle ideas. So we have to have both this consciousness and this courage, because consciousness without courage breeds anxiety, disappointment in ourselves, because we're like, I didn't live up to what I wanted to. It breeds regret and guilt, can breed defensiveness, right? When people challenge us on things. So it's knowing what's right, but lacking the will to act, right? Courage without consciousness is recklessness, right? It's like fools rushing in without direction or purpose. So without consciousness, we become reactive. I talked about that earlier when I was talking about the leaders I was working with. We make haphazard decisions that don't align with our true vision, and we tend to drift kind of aimlessly without a rudder to guide us. Without consciousness, on the other hand, we remain stagnant, really unable to move forward. So courage, in a sense, is the wind that propels us into action, even when there's resistance. And it gives us the strength to navigate all the uncertainty, the criticism, and even the fear, while staying true to our chosen path, which is, again, our consciousness. So consciousness sets the direction. Courage ensures the journey. And together they create meaningful transformation. And like I said a moment ago, that's why from an entire 253-page book, that is the phrase that I chose to put on a t-shirt. And this is the t-shirt that will be gifted out as Vince was talking about gifts later on.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love that. So, see, now the problem is I'm not eligible to win that. So
I'll send you one. It's okay.
awesome. Wonderful. Well, before we go on, for those of you that have ordered a copy of the book, make sure you make a note of it in the comments there. For those that haven't, I'll put the link in there again for all of you, just so you can order a copy of that. Our goal is to get this to bestseller, and we are very, very close, by the way. So keep purchasing that book. There you go. Nicole's just ordered a copy on Amazon. Thank you. Natalie's ordered a copy. Wonderful. Some of these names I'm going to struggle to pronounce, so I'm going to butcher it. I'm so sorry, everyone. Stacey's ordered, Rose has ordered, Krista's ordered earlier today. Awesome work, everyone. All right. Oh, wow. Everyone's coming through. There we go. No wonder we're getting close to the bestseller.
And by the way, only because you just mentioned Stacy, I have two sisters, Stacy and Crystal. They're both on the call. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My sister, Stacy, is a best-selling author for her book, Choose Yourself, which came out, I believe, just 1 year ago. I remember we did the book launch in February, didn't we, Stacy?
We sure did.
Yeah.
Am I picking up some competition here, maybe?
No, what you're picking up on is support.
Oh, there we go. Sure. Support. Right. Okay. I love that. Well, let's move on to the next question here, Nicole, which is, can you talk about the impact that you hope the book's going to have? So obviously, people that read this book are going to be impacted, but what do you want to see shifting in the industry as a result of this book?
Yeah, great. Thank you for actually even using that term, right? What do I want to see shifting? So I hope this book serves as a wake-up call for leaders. A reminder, I said to you guys a little while ago that one of the things that I remembered, right, not an insight or discovery, but really kind of a pattern remembrance, was that oftentimes leaders have stopped being strategic, and they've stopped thinking from the standpoint of their role as a visionary, and they've become very tactical. So one of the things I'm hoping this book will do will remind leaders of their role, of being a visionary, that it is their responsibility to set the North Star for their organizations, not just in terms of what work they do, but really why they do the work and how they do the work. Leaders define who we are as an organization. And it's their responsibility, our responsibility, to ensure that the priorities, the decisions, the actions, and the behaviors really align with that identity. So I want leaders to read this book and really take away from it and fully embrace their accountability in shaping organizational culture. Because too often, culture is treated as something that just happens rather than something that is intentionally cultivated. And so I want them to step into their intentionality. My hope is that leaders use the SHIFT framework as a practical tool to equip themselves and their organizations to live into their values, not just in words, but actually in practice. At its core, this book is really about intentional and purposeful leadership. And I want leaders to step into that role with clarity, conviction, and commitment to recognizing that shaping culture is not a passive responsibility, but an active, ongoing process. So if this book helps even one leader become more conscious, more courageous, more aligned, then it's done its job. My true hope is that it sparks a larger movement, one where leaders take ownership of their impact and create organizations that reflect not what they do, but who they truly are as an organization, or who they truly want to be as an organization.
I love that. I love it. So talk us through then, nice little segue into why that's so important right now. Yeah. This is always a
why
very
is that so
loaded
important right
question, everyone. Yeah.
You
But
know,
why is this important one?
it's interesting, Vince, because we actually delayed the release of this book by a couple weeks because I wrote the foreword after I had written everything else. And I wrote the foreword because of that question, right? Why is this book so important right now? So the foreword really speaks to that. And the reason this book is so important right now is because, we're living in a time of deep polarization, socially, politically, culturally. And polarization creates distrust, it hinders collaboration, and it makes it increasingly difficult for leaders to make clear, strategic, and values-driven decisions. Leaders cannot afford to be reactive at a time like this. It just makes situations and the matters worse. Without clarity and alignment, they can just get swept up in the existing chaos, struggling to inspire confidence, foster unity, or create any kind of sustainable progress. So this book is really important right now because it offers, I think, a very clear path forward. The SHIFT framework equips leaders with the tools to anchor themselves and their organizations in clarity, in purpose, and in intentional action. It provides a roadmap for navigating polarization, reinforcing core values, and aligning teams with a shared vision, even when our external factors feel out of control and uncontrollable. So rather than being paralyzed by division, leaders can use this framework in this book to transform challenges that they're experiencing into opportunities for conscious leadership, right? It should help them lead with consciousness, with courage and conviction, ensuring that their organizations remain resilient in times like this, focused, and united despite external turbulence. So really, I think now more than ever, leaders need a framework that empowers them to rise above the division, cultivate common ground, and align actions with purpose.
Nice.
My intention is that this book is that guide. It's not just about surviving uncertainty, it's about thriving in it and using consciousness and courage to lead with integrity in a fractured world. And again, we pushed back the release because I did not realize as I was writing the book and finishing the book that I had to ground the book in our current moment in time. And so when I got that realization, and I actually think, Vince, you gave me that realization, I think because as we were talking about marketing, I think you actually asked me that question, right? I think the question you asked me was why this is right now. And it was such a provocative question that I really had not considered as I was caught up in the writing process that I had to take a step back and do that, that intentional pause and reflection and say, wait a minute, why is this the right book right now? So we actually pushed back the release so that we could answer that question. So thank you for that.
I love that. I love that. And the one thing I will say is, obviously, you can look at any situation around the world right now and go, okay, this book is really relevant there, but it is relevant globally. And I'm a New Zealander. We moved to Australia about 18 months ago, but both New Zealand and Australia need this book right now. I think every single country, every leader needs this kind of book. So I just want to really appreciate you for writing that, Dr. Nicole. Now, before we kind of get into the question and answer section of this, so hopefully you've all got some questions there. I do want to give away a prize. We're going to give away an Amazon voucher. And how much were the Amazon vouchers, Nicole?
$20.
$20. So we get $20. We've got two of them here to give away. And what we've done here is, so I've stopped the comments here. Let's see, there we go. So Rose is the last one there that says I bought the book. I have just put those into a random number generator and I just need to reverse. So I've got to count very quickly, which I'm not very good at. So just give me a second here and I will announce the two winners. The first of those is Natalie Whitlock. So Natalie, congratulations. Yes.
One of my classmates, Dr. Natalie.
Yay, thank you. I love winning.
And the other one
it rarely happens. Thank you.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah, congratulations. And the other one there is Kim, and I'm going to butcher your surname. Sorry, Kim Dalius, is it? Or Dalius?
Dalius, yes, you got it. Yes. Thank
Nice.
you.
Another one of my classmates. Hi, Dr. Kim.
I like Chris's comment. That means the winner can buy 2 more copies of your book.
Right. That's my sister. Yes, that's.
Love it. Awesome. All right, we're going to go into the question and answer time now. So anyone that has a question, do what Dr. Meredith has done there, which is to click on that react button at the bottom and choose the raise hand option, and we will go in order. So first of all, Dr. Meredith, your question.
First of all, I know I said this at the beginning, but now that everybody's here and I see a bunch of our classmates, I just want to say on behalf of cohort 22, LFG, we are so proud of you. This is such a moment to see you do this, to be the first in our cohort. You're so freaking awesome. You're amazing. Brava. My question is, doctor school. For those of you who don't know, that's what I call our doctorate program. In doctor school, what class or what professor that we had really helped align your thinking or inspired your thinking?
Wow, great question. So I'm going to say there were a few of them. Dr. Canny, Dr. Grad, and Dr. Pritchard. And those classes, Pritchard, well, Canny was leadership, and Grad, oh gosh, I forget which class Grad was, but a couple of things that those folks really helped me understand were some concepts around conscious accountability, and what does that mean and what does that look like? So that's found its way into this book as well. And also really the difference between change management and transformation. And I talk about that in the book a little bit because, change management is not transformation, right? Change management is a process that you use to bring about some form of change. And it can be a variety of change. It can be incremental change. It can be adaptive change, transitional change. But transformation is a fundamental changing of who and what an organization is and how they operate. So we can use and we need to use change management practices within a transformational framework, but change management in of itself is not transformation, right? So one of the things that the book speaks to is those different kinds of change, when those different kinds of change are appropriate, because it's not always appropriate to be transformational. Transformational is all-encompassing, right? So it's not always appropriate to have transformational change, but there is a place, a need for change management in any one of these kind of change processes. So those are some of the things that came out of that really found their way into the book.
You're an absolute star. We love you. Thank you for bringing us along for this journey, and thank you for all of the lives that you're going to change. You are an absolute rock star.
Meredith, you are simply amazing, and you're going to make me cry. I have on mascara, so please don't do that.
I think every single person here agrees. So put your hands together for
Thanks,
Dr. Nicole.
Meredith.
Wonderful. All right, we will go on to Brian. Brian Butts, what's
I
your
don't
question?
know if he counts. That's my husband, but I guess he can answer.
He's asking for the khakis are. Yeah.
Well, I do have a question, though.
Okay.
If we were to anonymously put this on someone's desk at work, what level or what department do you recommend anonymously dropping this off to?
Good question, actually. So a couple things. One, I mentioned that one of the struggles I had or challenges I had as I was writing this book was identifying my audience, because again, transformation has to happen within people before it can happen in the larger system, right? So the audience that I was targeting was executives, because when I think about intentional leadership, I'm thinking about how do the executives take responsibility for building and cultivating that desired culture. Having said that, the other thing that I point out in the book is that each of you is a leader in different ways. It may be an executive, it may be middle management, it may be just overseeing a smaller team. In whatever sphere of influence you have, whether it's the largest aspect of the organization or your individual team, you have the ability to put these principles, this framework into place, even within that small team. There are some really fundamental questions that we can begin to ask ourselves and our teams, our divisions, our departments, that will transform the way in which we work with one another. So you can drop this book off anonymously at any level of the organization.
Okay.
and people can find in it a way for them to be impactful in the way in which they intentionally build the culture in which they work, despite the size of the sphere of their influence, whether it's small or whether it's large.
So this transcends HR then. It isn't an HR thing, so to speak. It's a leadership thing.
No, you're absolutely right. This is not an HR thing. This is a
Okay.
leadership thing. This is an intentional leadership approach. This is not just about human resources by any stretch of the imagination. Having said that, once you determine, so a couple things. One, SHIFT is an acronym, right? And it stands for each step in the framework. So the S stands for setting the North Star. You have to first identify and set your North Star. Who is it that you want to be as a leader? Who is it that you want your organization to be? Again, whether it's your team or whether it's the larger organization or anything in between. The second step is to determine you're here. You are here, kind of like at an amusement park, right? When you see that map, where are you right now? So once you know your North Star, where you're trying to get to, and once you know where you are currently in relation to that North Star, now you can actually illustrate a path forward to close the gap between those two things, right? Setting your North Star first and then determining you're here creates something called creative tension, right? The creative tension between knowing who you really want to be, but I'm not that person right now. Again, to Meredith's question, right? That's something that we talked a lot about in our program, right? So creating that creative tension. Once you have that creative tension, you can figure out, how do I close the gap? So that's the I, illustrating your path forward. F is forging ahead. This is where most organizations start. Most organizations start by just jumping in. They just forge ahead. They just start doing stuff, right? And that stuff isn't aligned with their vision. It's not aligned with their values. It's just activity, right? I refer to that as reactive doing. I'm just doing something because I know I'm supposed to be. Unless we first have the S, the H, and the illustration of how we're going to close the gap, without that, we're just doing stuff. So F is, now that I have those other three steps, I can actually forge ahead. I can use that map that I created in I, illustrate the path forward, to forge ahead. And then T is take a look around, right? It's like anytime you take a trip, anytime you take a journey, you want to be able to reflect on, have I reached it? Is it what I expected it to be? Am I where I thought I was going to be? What else can I do? What's my next endeavor, so to speak? So the T is to take a look around. So within all of that, there are going to be HR aspects that you're going to have to take into consideration. But this is not a book that is an HR book. It is a culture book.
So that just helped me realize I need to order more books as anonymous gifts.
To drop them
Thank you.
anonymously, okay.
Absolutely.
I will say this though, Brian, I'm not entirely sure how anonymous they are, considering you have the same surname as the author. Just saying. But go ahead and do it.
I have to work on that part.
Awesome. All right, we'll go to the next question now. Stacey, what is your question?
Oh, first of all, I just want to say, Nicole, you're amazing. I'm so excited for you, and you're such an inspiration, and you've just supported me so much in my life that I can't even put into words. So I'm not going to say anything else, because then I'm going to start crying. So I'm going to ask a real question. Okay. So one of the things that about transformation is that it's very, very messy. That's the fine print, is that it's very messy, very painful, and people have a lot of resistance to it, especially when we start poking around at their belief systems and trying to tell them that things that they've thought all this time needs to change. So how do you navigate that? Like, was there a tip that because that is what is amazing to me about what you do, right? Like, one of the things. So like, what's one of your tips of how you navigate kind of breaking the news to someone, right, that they're racist, for example, or that they're biased, or some of these things are unconscious. People don't really know it. And then when they find out, it can be shocking. So how do you navigate that?
So and you're right, it can be extremely messy, and it can also be very time consuming, right? This is not, I mentioned earlier that not all change is transformational change, nor should all change be transformational change, right? Transformational is all encompassing. And it's very time consuming. It can take not just time in terms of the moments that you're engaged, but it can take years for transformation to actually take hold, right, and become a reality. In terms of how do you help people through that, a couple of things. One, that's why you really have to start with setting the North Star, right? And that North Star has to be something that is shared with, communicated with the organization as a whole, in such a way that they can see themselves in it, that they can grab hold to it, that they understand the why. You know, a lot of times in organizations, we go through, again, change management processes, and people don't understand why the change is taking place. They don't understand the impact that change is going to have on them. That's one of many reasons why they could be resistant. So when you talk about setting that North Star, part of setting that North Star is being able to very clearly communicate the why behind it, why this is important for the organization, why it's important for you within the organization, what the end result is going to look like. After we go through this whole process, what is this going to look like? One of the things that you also have to take into consideration is how do you tell this story in an ongoing matter? This can't be a simple email that goes out that says, hey, we're going to do this. There's an ongoing storytelling that has to be part of any transformational journey. And there are lots of different forms of that storytelling. And I address about 3 different kinds of that storytelling in the book. Like, how do you continually tell that story to bring people along with you? And the fact of the matter is there are going to be some people that aren't okay with the change. And that's okay too, right? So.
I was going to say, I think I used to work with all those people. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you,
Thank
Stacey.
you, Nicole. I can't wait to read the book. Yay.
Awesome. All right, last question. Now, hopefully I got your name right here. Is it Rawa?
It is. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Hey, what's your question?
Well, hello, Dr. Nicole. I hope I am not taking too many liberties here, but on behalf of your Lion Sisters, your sorority sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Theta Mu Omega chapter, we're oh so proud of you and very much excited to receive my copy of the book. I know I see several of our sorority sisters on the call right now. My question for you is about your process, and forgive me if you may have broached this earlier in the call because I had to join a little bit late. But I'm always so impressed with people who can actually sit down and write a book. I don't know, it could be my ADHD prompted by years of TikTok addiction. I don't know, but I'd love to hear more about your process. What did it take to get here? And what kind of commitment did you have to demonstrate in order to arrive at this place today?
Great question. So a couple things. One, this book has really been marinating with me since 2020. I had started a draft of it, a very rough draft of it, before I started my doctoral program, and then it kind of got sidetracked. When I finished my program, I wanted to recommit myself to it. So I revisited the draft, clearly had to make significant changes to it because I learned so much, right, in my doctoral program. But when it came right down to it, Rawa, what I did, I actually took 7 days, went away from home, drove out to the desert, took my food, took my computer, my extra monitor, some resources, some resource books, and I sat down for 7 days and wrote it out, right? I had already mapped out the framework. So the framework was not new. I already had the shift framework. I already knew the aspects of the shift framework that I wanted to speak to. What I needed to do, though, was turn that into something readable, right? And I mentioned that a little while ago about how do I wanted to make it an allegory, but it really didn't work as an allegory. So how do I take the content, this hard, not hard in terms of difficult, but hard in terms of very structured, defined framework and the content, and turn that into something that people would be willing to sit down and read. And I also needed to dig into my experiences and my history and say, what are the stories that I can build into this to make it relatable, to make it real, and to make it applicable? So I took 7 days to get that. I'm going to say it's really the first draft, right? Because the first one was just kind of an outline, to get that first hardcore draft written. And then I spent about 6 weeks after I came back from that writing retreat to just kind of keep nailing away at it. That draft went to Vince's team, who did a developmental review and said, this is really good, and we need you to think about this, and this. right? So then I had to go back and think about those things they told me to think about and make those edits and adjustments and go from there. So for me, kind of for the ADHD part, kind of for the just the space to be creative, because one of the things I mentioned is that I had been in an academic writing framework. This is not academic writing, and so it's not a novel, it's not fiction, but there's a level of creativity that you still have to bring into this process that I needed to tap into. And in order for me to tap into that, I needed to leave home for 7 days and tap into it. So that's what worked for me. But I think everybody has a different kind of writing process, but that was the process I needed to go through.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Love that. Love it. Yeah, the opposite of academic writing, we call that human writing. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Okay, so now I have a name
normal
for it.
person. No. Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm going to announce another winner here now because we're going to do a random draw on those that ask questions. So I have 4 of you written down here, and I am going to just run a random number generator. Okay, and it's a random number generator when it randomly chooses the very first number. So the winner there is Dr. Meredith. So Dr. Meredith, there's a Amazon voucher for you as well. Awesome. All right, everyone. As I said before, make sure you take a moment to, if you haven't already purchased that book, and like I said, once you get that book, go back in and leave a review if you can on Amazon. It really does help. It helps Nicole, Dr. Nicole. It'll also help other people to know that this is the right book for them. And as you would have heard here, I mean, we're all incredibly proud of you, Dr. Nicole. Honestly, this is a huge accomplishment, and you should feel very proud of this yourself. Make sure you take some time to rest after this. I know we're going to be working on the next book and the next book.
We're on the next book, yeah.
Yeah, it takes some time to rest on that. And I know everyone here is incredibly supportive. This is your cheer squad, all of us here. We should have brought pom-poms.
This is my cheer squad. There's no question about that.
I would have brought pom-poms in a tutu. It would go really well. Wonderful. All right, everyone. Now we are going to run. I put another note in there saying that purchase the book. Don't forget and share about it on social using the hashtag #ShiftBook. Make sure you spell that right. I almost said that wrong. #ShiftBook. And we'll be giving away the T-shirt as well as around this. The consciousness plus courageousness equals transformation.
Consciousness plus courage equals
courage. There we go. Courage equals transformation. I should know that. Wonderful. Hey, look, before we finish off here, I do just want to take a moment and really do acknowledge you again, Dr. Nicole. Not just for the hard work you put into this as well, but you really are somebody who has a passion to change the world for the better. And this came through very, very strongly when working with my team. It's one thing that came across, like the team mentioned it a number of times, is how passionate you are about affecting positive change. And this is not just change, this is really positive change that the world needs right now. So we're looking at situations here in Australia, and some of my team are in Estonia. They're all sorts all over the world, even in Kenya. And every single person said the same thing, which is that this is something that is needed in their country. So this is transcendent. It goes beyond just HR, as Brian said. It goes to leaders all over the world. So I just really want to acknowledge that and acknowledge you for your hard work put into this. It is a fantastic book, and I don't just say that about all the clients. I say that very, very carefully. This is a very, very good book. So make sure you all take a moment to get it. Oh wow, all the congratulations. I love these. Yes, brilliant work, Nicole. Congratulations, Nicole. There we go. Everyone putting your messages in there. We're incredibly proud of you.
This is my community. These are my people. When people talk about villages, yeah, this is mine.
Yeah, we call ours the Misfits Collective. So I think this pretty much qualifies as the Misfits Collective as well. So I love it. Wonderful. All right, everyone. So yeah, as you've seen in there is a link to purchase the book if you haven't already. Make sure you do leave a review in there. For those of you that have won prizes in here for the questions or for engagement, you will be contacted by Dr. Nicole. And then, yeah, I just really want to thank you all for taking the time to come and celebrate with us here. And this really is a celebration. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you for being here. And I appreciate all the support throughout this process. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, there you go, everyone. That is it.
Yeah, champagne time. Yes. Do you have some downstairs, Brian?
I've just finished my whiskey now. I need to go and get another one. So there we go, to celebrate. But everyone, get out there, share this book everywhere you can. Share it on social. Make sure you use that hashtag If you know anyone that you think this book is right for, either buy them a copy anyway. You don't need to leave it anonymously on the desk, Brian, just saying. You can just give them the book. But
My
also,
mother did already. She bought it for somebody at a board she works on.
there you go. Love that. Wonderful.
And
All
again,
right,
the price goes up in a week, right, Vince? It goes up
Yep,
on Wednesday of next week?
that's right. Wednesday of next week, the price will go up. So make sure you get your copy now. Wonderful.
99 cents of electronic. That's pretty daggone good. I think that's what freaked my mother out. She's like, really? Only 99 cents? So the ebook.
Yeah, I was going to say, just so you know, it is a strategic approach. So we know what we're doing with this. We will hit their bestseller, and also we will notify all of you when it does hit bestseller as well, just so you know that you are part of that and you are part of making this book a success. So thank you to everyone here. Cool.
Thank you, everyone.
Any last words from you, Dr. Nicole?
Thank you. Again, just thank you for being my village, and thank you for all the support. I really,
Oh,
thank you. I'll just say that. Thank you.
Very well deserved. And very
thank
well
you, Nicole. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Butts.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. We're so proud of you.
Thank you all.
Nice job, Nicole.
My mascara's about to
Bye.
start running, so Vince, we may need to hang up because I'm about to start crying.
I was going to say, that's a good result when we can
That's a
make her
good-
cry at the end of this. Wonderful. Cool. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. As I said, get out there, share this book everywhere you can. And if you haven't already, grab that copy, leave those reviews. It really does help. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks,
moderating,
Vince.
Vince.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Nicole.
Vince. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Vince. Bye, everybody. Have a good evening. Thanks for being here.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay.